Astronomers typically specialize in different fields. Some will study planets, some will study galaxies. I happen to study stars. Physicists and astronomers have started asking questions about this. They say, why does the universe appear to be designed? I read this book written many years ago called The Anthropic Principle. It's a tome of over 1,000 pages. They draw this interesting story that the world appears to be designed. When they got done, they said it just appears to be designed. There really is no design there. And I'm thinking, well, you look at the evidence and you deny that the evidence is there. How can you not believe that somebody designed all of this?
The secular world says that the Big Bang occurred 14 billion years ago. Everything was compacted into one spot, it expanded, then the stars formed themselves, and then our sun formed, and in the dust around the sun, the earth formed. It was a hot molten blob, got covered by water, and then biological evolution happened. But if that's the case, you've got any number of problems.
According to evolution theory or atheist evolution theory, the Big Bang created everything, gas clouds went everywhere, and stars contracted from gas clouds out of their gravity. Well, it's impossible for stars to contract out of their gravity because as soon as you get a gas cloud that compressed, it's going to heat up, and hot gases want to expand, and that expansion force is 100 times or more than the force of gravity. It could never happen. There are all these dog-ate-my-homework stories about how gravity waves from black holes might do a push-pull thing on gas clouds and make this actually happen. But you got a chicken and the egg problem here, because don't black holes come from stars? So you have to get stars in the first place. There are many, many questions in science that have not been answered, but there are many questions that have been answered. So far, it's the problem for the evolutionist of the questions that have been answered, like the coalition of the stars, like violating the first law of thermodynamics, that matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed. The Big Bang insists that happened at least once.
Many people think the universe popped into existence instantly in a Big Bang. And it happened by itself.
Somehow matter has spontaneously come into existence without a prior cause. They have some problems with the laws of nature.
I was speaking to the vice president of the Darwin Coalition once, and I said, well, you all believe in spontaneous generation. He said, we do not. I said, yes, you do. You believe it happened at least once, don't you? Why would a smart person be so easily fogged and fooled by a dumb suggestion that actually his theory does violate the known discoveries and laws of science?
We have two very important concepts in physics called the first and second laws of thermodynamics. The first law says that energy is neither created nor destroyed. And equally as valid as the first law is the second law of thermodynamics, which says things are currently running down, energy is becoming less useful. The useful amount of energy is always decreasing. And we measure this with a thing called entropy. The entropy is always increasing. And it's almost like the world was wound up like a clock and it's been unwinding. The second law would seem to argue that
The universe has not always existed. The material universe has not always existed.
But the first law says you couldn't have a beginning. So we have this contradiction. We have this tension. Both laws are equally true, and yet both laws have extrapolated into the past, contradict one another. Physically, the universe has no natural explanation. It doesn't have a physical explanation.
You see, the other thing they've done in our education system, they said science can only explain things by natural processes.
They've even changed the definition of science from the study of the natural world using the five senses to be the search for natural explanations.
But who decided that? That's an arbitrary definition.
That specifically excludes any possibility of God being involved. God has not only been kicked out, but he's most unwelcome. They've totally changed the methodology of science.
We need to bring the worlds of science and the Bible together for people so they see they mesh. It's the unbelievers that have a problem, not us.
From a secular perspective, they can only get light about halfway across the universe. That's why they have inflation theories and superinflation theories and so on, because they have a problem. They have a light time travel problem.
You know, the problem is actually worse than we sometimes think. Alpha Centauri is more than 4 light years away. God had to get that light here, not in 4 years, but actually at the end of day 4.
We used to call that the starlight problem. The nearest galaxy to us is 2 million, 1.5 million light years away. Wouldn't it take 1.5 million years for the light to get here? And yes, in straight space it would. But even the Big Bang theorists will say that space and dimension unfolded
Some people want to take mentions of in the Old Testament of God stretching out the heavens like a tent or like a canopy, stretching that light miraculously to get here.
He stretches out the heavens as a tent upon a pole to dwell in. He stretches out the heavens as a curtain. He that arched the heavens, he that bowed the heavens. He stretched out the heavens across the north place. All these verses and many more indicate that the way God did it was stretching.
The telescope has been around for hundreds of years and has played an instrumental role in many of our greatest discoveries about the universe. Telescopes, much larger and more advanced than these, were used in the early 1900s to measure what became known as redshift, a form of measurement which provided empirical evidence that space was stretching. This meant that space-time itself could actually be manipulated, as if it were fabric. This understanding would begin to bring answers to some of the biggest mysteries of the universe. But this concept was just a recognition of what the Bible already revealed. In the books of both Isaiah and Job, God said he stretched out the heavens like a curtain, and that he created the heavens and stretched them out. These verses gave us further insight to the dimensionality of space and showed us that the universe has been stretched since the beginning of creation. The implications of this biblical concept have been better understood in modern times. What's equally extraordinary is that the Bible also revealed that the earth was round and that it floated in space, hanging upon nothing. Amazing insights proclaimed at a time when some ancient cultures believed the earth was flat. The Bible has always been and shall ever be validated by real science.
Edmund Hubble is credited with perhaps the greatest discovery. Many people think the greatest discovery of astronomy in the 20th century. The idea of what we call the expansion of the universe. And if it's expanding, then you would expect more distant objects to appear to be moving farther away from us. As the universe gets larger, there should be a relationship between distance and that apparent motion between us. And we measure that motion by the redshifts.
Now, according to Albert Einstein, if you actually stretch the fabric of space, you will also essentially necessarily have to stretch the fabric of time. So Andromeda is not just 2 million, 1.5 million light years in spatial displacement over that way, but also it's time stretched. Yes, we're looking at the galaxy of Andromeda as it looked at a previous time, but we're also looking at a galaxy that has experienced more time than we have if we're anywhere closer to the center of the stretching.
William Tift, who back about 40 years ago discovered something interesting in the redshifts of galaxies. The universe consists of concentric shells of galaxies, and we're near the center of that. If we're placed there by God for some reason, that's what you might expect. Astronomers more or less have ignored Tift's work over the years, and yet actually it's staring them in the face. In astronomy, as any other science, I think there are evidences that the world is far younger than many people think. Spiral galaxies would be a good example. They actually spin more rapidly at the center and more slowly out at the edges. Obviously, if this thing spins around several times, it starts smearing out the spiral arms. And as that happens, you would spin it out to the point you'd end up with this amorphous disk. They think these galaxies are at least 10 billion years old. So these things would be entirely smeared out. But in 6,000 years, not much smearing taking place. In billions of years, it's a problem. Thousands of years, not a problem. Comets really do have something to say about the age of the solar system. We can divide comets into two groups. We call the short period comets and the long period comets. For short period comets, a couple 100,000 years, they're all gone. There shouldn't be any left. Long period comets, well, tens of millions, maybe 100 million years, but they're all gone again. So for billions of years, solar system, you have a problem. Thousands of years, not a problem. We understand the sun is powered by nuclear fusion, and that could power the sun for billions of years. As it produces energy like that, it changes its composition inside, and over time, it should slowly brighten. And as it does, the Earth would get warmer. Now, again, over thousands of years, not a problem. But if you go back a couple of billion years, 3 billion years or so, when life first supposedly developed on the planet, you have a problem because the Earth would have been far colder and it would have been frozen, and nobody thinks that that happened. In billions of years, it's a problem. Thousands of years, not a problem.